You open a tab at 11:47 on a Tuesday night and type 4 words you've never typed before. Best countries to leave. You stare at it for a second before you hit enter. Not because you're scared of what you'll find, because you're scared of how much you already want to read it. That's where it starts. Not with a plan, not with a crisis, just with a tab and a question you can't unask. This is the story of the people who actually did it. The ones who didn't just Google it and close the laptop. The ones who made the call, packed the boxes, said goodbye at the airport to people who looked at them like they were making a mistake, and drove away from the only country they'd ever called home. If you've ever had that 11 p.m. thought even once, stick around. Because the psychology of this decision is unlike anything most people expect. You grew up believing certain things about America. Not in a naive way, you weren't that person. You knew the country had problems. You watched the news. You argued about politics at Thanksgiving. You understood that the gap between the idea of America and the reality of America had always existed. But you also believed, somewhere beneath all the cynicism, that the gap was closable, that the arc bent, that things generally moved, even slowly, in the right direction. Then somewhere between your late 20s and your early 40s, the math stopped working. You are a college-educated professional. Maybe you have a partner. Maybe you have one kid or two. You make $85,000 a year, which sounds like a lot until you break it down. Your rent is $2,400 a month in a city that's not even New York or San Francisco, just a mid-sized place where you moved for work. Your health insurance is $680 a month with a $6,500 deductible, which means you effectively have no insurance until something catastrophic happens. Your student loans are $430 a month for a degree you needed to get the job that pays you just enough to afford the loans. And the median home price in your city just crossed $420,000. You are not poor. By most global standards, you are wealthy. But you are also one broken transmission or one health scare away from a credit card balance you can't pay off before it starts eating itself. And the thing nobody says out loud is that this is the plan, not a flaw in the system. The plan. You stay in the lane. You work the years. You try not to get sick. You wait. Then someone you know, someone who was in a situation almost identical to yours, posts a photo from Lisbon. And in the photo, they're sitting at a cafe in the afternoon on a Wednesday, and they're not on their phone, and they don't look tired. You stare at that photo longer than you mean to. And that night, you open the tab. Here's what the data says, because the data matters. In 2025, the United States recorded net negative migration for the first time since 1935. More people left than arrived. Not because of mass deportations alone, though 675,000 deportations happened, but because over 400,000 Americans voluntarily relocated abroad. At least 180,000 of those were confirmed by receiving countries' own immigration records, and experts at the Brookings Institution say the true number is significantly higher. Citizenship renunciations, Americans formally giving up their passports, surged 102% in a single year. Nearly 5,000 people in 2025. The global queue to renounce is now more than 30,000 people long, with a years-long wait at US consulates. The $2,350 fee, the highest renunciation fee of any country on earth, is not slowing anyone down. 42% of Americans told Gallup in a 2025 survey they'd considered leaving permanently within the next 2 years. Among people under 30, that number is 63%. Among LGBTQ+ Americans, 61%. Among Hispanic Americans, 61%. These are not fringe numbers. These are numbers that describe roughly every other person you know. The exit has already begun. Most people just haven't noticed yet. Because the people leaving are not making announcements, they're making spreadsheets. You start with Portugal because everyone starts with Portugal. You don't know why, maybe the Instagram photos, and maybe a podcast you half listen to on a commute, but you type, "Move to Portugal from USA at 11:52 p.m. and 4 hours disappear." You learn that a D7 passive income visa lets you live there legally if you can prove a steady income of about $1,400 a month. That Lisbon, which used to be Europe's best-kept secret, is now expensive by Portuguese standards, but still cheaper than Austin. That Porto is what Lisbon was 8 years ago. That the Algarve coast has a 3-bedroom house you could rent for $900. You bookmark 14 tabs. You don't close your laptop until 3 a.m. You tell yourself you're just curious. Lots of people are curious. Curiosity is not a plan. But the next night, you're back. This time, you're looking at Mexico. 1.5 million Americans already live there, more than in any other country on earth. You don't need a visa for 180 days. A doctor visit in the expat neighborhoods of Merida or San Miguel de Allende costs $40. $40. Your copay for a 10-minute appointment with your GP in the United States is $55 before the deductible. Prescription drugs cost 70 to 80% less. You read about a retired teacher from Ohio who lives in Oaxaca on her Social Security check and describes it as the first time in her adult life she doesn't feel financially afraid. You read that sentence 3 times. Then you check the numbers for Canada, even though you know Canada has a harder immigration path. You read about Ireland, where the number of Americans relocating surged 96% in the 12 months leading up to April 2025. 9,600 Americans moved to Ireland in a single year. More Americans moved to Ireland than Irish people moved to America. You read that and something shifts slightly in your head, some weight of assumption about which direction people move across that particular ocean. And here's the thing, no one tells you about this research phase. It doesn't feel like escape. It feels like optimization. You are a rational person who runs the numbers on car insurance and 401k contribution rates and mortgage amortization schedules. What you're doing right now feels exactly like that. You're asking, is the current arrangement the best available arrangement? And the data is starting to suggest that the answer is no. Has been no for a while? You bring it up to your partner on a Saturday morning, almost casually. You say, I've been reading about people who move abroad. You don't say you've been reading about it for 3 weeks. You don't say you've bookmarked 47 tabs. You say it like it's a thought you just had. They look at you over their coffee cup. They say, like where? You say, Portugal maybe, or Mexico. They don't say no, that's the thing. They don't immediately say you're being ridiculous. They say, huh. And then after a pause, tell me more. That's the second crack. The first one was the photo from Lisbon. The second one is the tell me more. Because now it's not just a thought in your head, it's a conversation. And conversations have trajectories. You spend the next 3 months in what people who've actually made this move call the research rabbit hole. It has a specific texture. You're not depressed. You're not running away from something, or at least that's what you tell yourself. You're investigating. You read expat blogs and Reddit threads and watch YouTube videos from people who did it 5 years ago and have varying levels of regret. You notice that almost none say they wish they'd stayed. Some say the country they moved to wasn't the right country. Some say the visa process was harder than they expected. Some say they miss their families more than they thought they would. But the ones who went back to the United States? Most of them describe it the way someone describes going back to a relationship they left for a reason. You remember why you left. You remember more clearly every day. You start actually costing it out. This is the moment it becomes real. You pull up a spreadsheet, because of course you do, and you map your current monthly spend in the United States against projected spend in Lisbon. Column A. $2,400 rent, $680 insurance, $430 loans, $600 food, $340 car payment, $180 utilities, $220 subscriptions and miscellaneous. Total, $4,850 a month. Column B, Lisbon, $1,100 for a 2-bedroom apartment in a good neighborhood, $90 for private health insurance with 0 deductible because you're not in America anymore. $350 food, $80 transit pass, $150 utilities. Total, $1,770 a month. You don't even have the car payment anymore because you don't need a car. You sit there with that spreadsheet open for a long time. You make $85,000 a year. That's roughly $7,000 a month take home after taxes. In the United States, you are left with $2,150 after expenses. In Lisbon, you are left with $5,230. You could work part-time. You could save aggressively for the first time in your adult life. You could take your kid to school in the morning and be there when she gets out. You could sit at a cafe on a Wednesday afternoon without looking at your phone. You close the spreadsheet. You open it again an hour later. The thing about the American middle class in 2026 is that it's not poor enough to qualify for help and not rich enough to be insulated from what's coming. The housing market has priced out a generation. The healthcare system is structurally designed to extract money from people at their most vulnerable. The student loan complex absorbed 30 years of wage growth from an entire demographic. And the response to all of this, the official institutional response, has been to tell people to work harder, budget smarter, make better choices. As if the person doing $4,850 a month just hasn't thought of cutting the avocado toast. What the emigrants figured out is not that America is uniquely bad. It's that the deal isn't as good as advertised. That there are countries, Portugal and Spain and Costa Rica and Thailand, where your $85,000 American salary earned remotely in US dollars makes you genuinely wealthy. not comfortable, wealthy, where you get better healthcare for $90 a month than you got for $680, where your kid goes to a good school and you don't need to move to a specific zip code and lottery into the right district, where the social contract still resembles a contract. This is the arbitrage that nobody at a Fortune 500 company is supposed to talk about. Capital has always moved to wherever the barriers are lowest. It just took labor a few decades to figure out the same principle applies to people. You start telling other people you're thinking about it. And this is where it gets strange, because the reactions split almost perfectly along a single line. The people who have secretly thought about it themselves and the people who haven't. The ones who haven't react with a specific kind of discomfort. Not anger usually, just something that looks like the face people make when you say something that requires them to reconsider a decision they already made. You're not trying to do that to them, but that's what happens when someone decides they might actually leave a place that other people decided to stay. The ones who have thought about it, they ask one question: how are you doing it? Not whether. How. You file for your passport. This is not the decision. This is still just logistics. 63 million Americans applied for or renewed passports in 2025. A record, and most of them are not leaving. But you file, and when it arrives 6 weeks later, you hold it for a while before you put it in the drawer. You book a trip to Lisbon, 10 days. You tell people it's a vacation. It is technically. But you also make an appointment with an immigration attorney on day 4 and tour 3 apartments on day 6. The apartment on the 3rd floor of a building in Moraria has thick walls and a view of the castle and costs $1,100 a month. The landlord speaks decent English. The internet is fiber, 300 megabits down. You sit in that apartment for 20 minutes and you do the thing you're not supposed to do yet, which is imagine your furniture there. On day 7 you get sick. Nothing serious, a bad cold that turns into a sinus thing. You walk into a pharmacy. The pharmacist looks at you, asks a few questions and recommends 3 medications. Total cost, $14. No appointment, no insurance card, no copay, no prior authorization. $14 and you're done in 8 minutes. You stand on the sidewalk afterward and feel something that takes you a minute to identify. You feel angry, not at Portugal, at the fact that you're 39 years old and this is the first time buying medicine didn't require a calculation. You go home to the United States. You don't make a decision at the airport, you just go home. But the thing about going home after you've seen what you've seen is that home looks different. The commute looks different, the insurance portal looks different, the mortgage calculator you open on Sunday mornings looks different. Everything has a comparison now. And once you have a comparison, you cannot stop making it. 6 months later, you give notice at your job. Your employer, because this is 2026 and the remote work infrastructure actually exists now, offers you a remote arrangement rather than lose you. You take it. You list your apartment. You have 2 long video calls with your parents, who ask questions in the order you expected. Is it safe? What about healthcare? What do you do when something goes wrong? You answer each one. For healthcare, you explain that Spain is ranked 7th in the world by the World Health Organization. The United States is ranked 37th. Your parents grew up believing the inverse was true. Most people do. The move itself is logistically absurd. You learn things you never expected to need to know: apostiles and FBAR filings and the specific bank accounts that will accept American clients under FATCA reporting requirements, because a surprising number of foreign banks simply won't touch you once they see your US passport. You learn that America taxes its citizens on worldwide income regardless of where they live, one of only 2 countries in the world that does this. Eritrea is the other one. You learn this fact and sit with it for a moment, but you do it. The boxes get packed. The storage unit gets rented for the things you can't decide about yet. The goodbye dinner happens, and it is harder than any dinner you can remember, and you cry in the Uber on the way home, and you wonder if you're making a mistake, and then you wake up the next morning, and nothing about the underlying calculation has changed. You land in Lisbon on a Tuesday evening. The city smells like the Atlantic and something faintly floral you can't name. Your apartment is on the 3rd floor of the building in Moraria, and your furniture is not there yet. So you sleep on an air mattress on a wood floor and eat dinner from a place around the corner that charges you €7 for a meal that would have been at $22 at home. You don't feel triumphant. You feel quiet and slightly terrified, and more like yourself than you have in years. The calls home are strange at first. People ask how it is. You say good, which is honest but insufficient. You don't know how to explain that what you're experiencing isn't just a cheaper rent. It's a renegotiation of what you thought you were worth. of what you thought you were owed by a system you paid into for 20 years and got very little back from. You don't say that on the calls. You say the weather is nice and the food is incredible, and yes, the language is hard, but you're working on it. 3 months in, you see your doctor for the first time. A real appointment, not an urgent care visit. You sit in the waiting room clean, unhurried, a 20-minute wait, and you think about the last time you saw a doctor in the United States. The 40 minutes you spent on hold to schedule it. The $55 copay and the $340 bill that came 6 weeks later for things you thought were covered. The feeling of being processed. Here, you spend 45 minutes with a physician who speaks English and answers your questions without looking at a clock. The bill, including 2 lab tests, is $62. You pay it and don't think about it again. That is the sentence that would have been impossible before. You pay it and don't think about it again. The numbers for 2026 are still coming in, but the Brookings Institution projects the net outflow will be higher than 2025. The citizenship renunciation queue is now more than 30,000 people long, a wait measured in years. Canada opened 2 new permanent residency streams in 2026, specifically targeting Americans with in-demand skills. Portugal extended its D8 digital nomad visa program. Spain's digital nomad visa is now one of the most applied for documents at American embassies in Europe. Ireland is absorbing Americans at nearly twice the rate it did 2 years ago. The countries that spent a century sending people to America are now building infrastructure to receive Americans. The great reversals always look obvious in retrospect. They never look obvious while they're happening. In the 1930s, Americans lined up to emigrate to the Soviet Union, more than 100,000 applications in a single year, because the deal at home had stopped making sense and the deal somewhere else looked better. Historians look back at that and understand it completely. They understand the psychology, the math, the moment when staying stops being the obvious choice. We are at that moment again. Not the same conditions, not the same destination, but the same inflection point, the same arithmetic, the same Tuesday night at 11:47 where someone opens a tab they've never opened before and types 4 words they can't take back. You're not running away. That's the thing people get wrong about everyone who leaves. You're running the numbers, and the numbers, for the first time in a generation, point out the door. Somewhere tonight, another American is sitting at a laptop with a tab open. Maybe they saw a photo. Maybe they got the medical bill. Maybe they just did the math one more time and couldn't make it add up. They haven't told anyone yet. It still feels private, a little embarrassing, a little like admitting something they were trained to never admit. But they're looking. And once you start looking, the exit starts to look less like a failure and more like a door. That's how it works. And right now, more people than at any point in 90 years are walking through it.